We've done our National League preview, breaking down all three NL divisions, so it's only right we move to the American League and do the exact same thing. We're going AL West, AL Central, and AL East, previewing each division, predicting the division winner, and giving you our favorite over-under for each division as well. And all this is coming up next on the Bush League Bros. Roll the open.
Now, certainly plenty of fanfare between these two brothers.
Just complete Bush League.
The little brother just trying to annoy big brother.
If you look at it on the surface, it's Bush League.
Something about that sticks in my craw.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Bush League Bros, partner of the House Call Sports. I'm here with Taylor. My name is Matt, and today we are doing our 2024 American League preview. But before we get into that, do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, Taylor will prematurely get that Rockies hoop earring that he was talking about last episode. Now, me personally, that might give me a reason to unsubscribe, okay? But for you guys, that might be a good incentive. So if you want to see Taylor looking like Diana Ross on the next episode, go ahead and subscribe. Now, let's get into this American League, man. Let's do all three division previews for the AL, and we've already gotten to watch some regular season baseball as the Dodgers and Padres just played the Soul Series. But for the rest of these teams, they haven't started the regular season yet, especially in the American League. So we're going to go division by division, breaking them down for you, telling you who is going to win each division, and giving you our best over-under pick for the division as well. So we might as well start with the AL West, where last year we saw two teams from this division be the ALCS participants. One of those teams win the World Series. The Houston Astros have won this division 6 of the last 7 years and been to the ALCS all 7 of those years. They won the division last year, but ended up losing in 7 games to the eventual World Series champions and Texas rival, the Texas Rangers, who look to defend their World Series crown in 2024, while the AL West also features the Mariners, who just missed out on the division and then ended up also missing the playoffs as well, and look to bounce back and make another playoff run in 2024, and the Angels in their first year without Shohei Ohtani, and the A's in their millionth year without anyone relatively good. So we look to round this division out, and I'm going to ask you, Taylor, tell me who wins the AL West.
Yeah, like you said, the A's are bad. Not a shock to anybody. I don't think they're going to be completely abysmal in the first half of the season, though, before they trade a bunch of these flip pieces. You know, they've got guys like Seth Brown, J.D. Davis, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling. Those are all solid big leaguers, but a lot of those guys, if not all of them, are probably going to be gone after the deadline. And you pair those with some interesting younger players like Joe Boyle, who, if he can find some command, he's going to be a really good starting pitcher. And against aggressive opposing lineups, maybe the A's become an interesting underdog play when he's on the mound. But overall, not a whole lot of reasons to be tuning into A's baseball. That brings us to the Angels. They could have potentially changed their outlook a little bit if they had gone after Snell and been a little bit more aggressive, because you look at the rotation, Reed Detmers, Griffin Canning, Patrick Sandoval, and those are the makings of a pretty solid rotation if you just had a clear-cut number one to put above them, especially because on paper, this lineup doesn't look that bad right now, but the problem is they need all of those guys to stay healthy and hope that their young guys continue improving, and just hope that Anthony Rendon doesn't bring everybody else down, because, like, do you really want that guy around all your younger players at this point? I don't know. But Rendon's negative energy is counteracted by the presence of Ron Washington, when I love that they brought him in. But ultimately, even if everything goes right for them and they somehow win 85 games, like, they're probably still third in the division and they don't end up getting a wild card spot. And then we get to the World Series champs, the Rangers, and they have a lineup that is going to put up huge numbers, even if some of their guys miss time. But this team's regular season success hinges on that starting pitching, and specifically the starting pitching in the first half before DeGrom, Scherzer, and Tyler Mahle become available. And John Gray's kind of a name to circle there, because if he can be somewhere around the good range, I feel pretty good about the rotation even right now. I kind of foresee a similar path for them this year as last year. I think the regular season is going to be a lot of highs and lows for them. I think they're going to end up with a wild card spot and potentially be going into the playoffs with an even more intimidating roster than the one that won the World Series last year, and with a rotation headed by Jacob deGrom. So once they're in the playoffs, I like them just as much as anyone. And then the Mariners, I love the offseason additions. I think they've added a ton of consistency to that lineup, which pairs well with that top tier pitching. They replaced a lot of these guys that have big whiff concerns and streaky power with guys that aren't going to strike out as much but still have some pop. And Jorge Polanco is one of those guys who's a really solid add. But Mariners fans will tell you, they were also excited about Colton Wong last year for similar reasons. This is a position the Mariners needed to upgrade, because their second basemen have only put up a 79 WRC plus since 2021, which is 27th in the league. And Polanco's got a career 111 WRC plus. So that's a huge upgrade. But my only concern with the guys they brought in is health, because neither Polanco or either of the Mitches has been been consistently healthy. And Garver should stay healthier this year because he won't be catching it all, most likely. But that also means that if he's DHing, you can't rotate Haniger and Polanco into that DH spot as much to keep them fresh. But when I look at the lineup now, I see a team that can put together 4 runs on any given day. You don't have to put up a ton of runs every game, just consistently 4 or 5 runs a game. Let your elite pitching do its thing. And if that happens, I think this team could definitely win the division. But we get to the Astros, and while the Mariners or Rangers could win this division, I just don't think they're going to top this Astros team in the regular season. Everybody 1 through 8 in that lineup has proven upside. And while I was not a fan of the long-term cost of that Josh Hader deal for the Astros, it obviously helps them a ton this year. Because if that trio of Presley, Abreu, and Hader can pitch up to their potential, really the only question about this team is how much do they get from that starting pitching, which is where it gets interesting for them because they have a ton of arm injuries right now, but they have so many options that I think they're going to be okay. Framber should be steady as ever at the top of that rotation, and I believe that either Hunter Brown or Christian Javier is going to have a really good year this year, and I think regardless that both of them improve upon their years last year. This team is a juggernaut, and that Hader signing tells me that they're pretty much going all in for the next couple of years, even if it hurts them 4 or 5 years from now. So this year is critical for their legacy as well. They need another championship if they want to distance themselves from that scandal-ridden 2017 championship and make their case to the people like Matt who don't think they're a dynasty that they are a dynasty. So I'm taking them for the division, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm also taking their over 93.5 win total as my over-under pick for this division. This team is they're just simply better than that, and I understand why the line is that low since they only won 90 games last year, but this might be one of their best rosters on paper in their championship run, so I don't really see any reason why they shouldn't win 95 to 100 games and win the division.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the Astros is as much as I hate to say it, you're not going to go wrong picking the Astros with anything, really. If you're picking them to go to the World Series, it's not a bad pick. You pick them to win the World Series, not a bad pick. Pick them to win the division, not a bad pick. Pick them to win any given game, it's not a bad pick, because they're a great team, and they've been a great team for the last, 7 and going on 8 years now. So I'm definitely not going to argue with the Astros. I may have a little bit of a differing opinion towards the end, though. We'll see. But I'm going to start off with the A's, too. I mean, we know the A's are going to be bad, but there is some guys you can look at from 2023 and be excited for, okay? Especially Geloff, who you can legitimately be excited for. He was really good everywhere, base running, stolen bases, 14 homers, 840 OPS, and a 133 WRC plus, graded out well defensively as well. They have some pieces that you can look at and be excited, but nothing that's really got you thinking they're anywhere close to being other than, one of the worst 3 teams in baseball this year. And then the Angels, I think the Angels might be a little bit better than everyone anticipates. The lineup actually, like you were talking about, Taylor, has a lot of solid players, a lot of talent too. This might be kind of like a casual take, but you look at their projected starting lineup, it's got 6 former first-round picks in there, and then the bench has 3 former first-round picks too, so that's a good amount of talent on the roster. And I also like the mature approach from a young player like Nolan Schanuel to, it's perfect. They got him hitting 2-hole in front of Trout. I think that's perfect. He had a 400 on-base percentage and more walks than Ks and has 100 at-bats last year as a rookie, so that's a great guy to hit in front of Mike Trout. And that kind of brings me to, in the end, Trout's injury concerns and having played, not played more than 120 games since 2019, and then the lack of pitching depth and consistency means they probably won't compete at a high level this year either. But Taylor, you mentioned it. The 3 teams that will compete at a high level, the Mariners, the Rangers, and the Astros. All of them have pennant-winning potential, to be honest. I mean, I think all 3 of them have potential to win the pennant. They are all really, really good rosters. And the Mariners, obviously, with their rotation and bullpen and offensive improvements, the Rangers literally just won the World Series. The pitching is a concern, but it was last year, too, and they won the World Series anyway. And we know what the Astros bring to the table still. So, but my concern for those 3 teams this year is kind of the same concern that we talked about last year before the beginning of the season. There's only 6 AL playoff spots. Say it's the Yankees in the AL East, the Astros in the AL West, and the Twins in the AL Central. You got the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Rangers, and the Mariners, all teams who you could fathom making a World Series run, fighting for 3 spots. Okay, that's 2 really good teams left out of the playoffs entirely. That's really tough. It makes every regular season game mean so much more. And to me, as of now, these 3 teams are pretty evenly matched. Okay, they all have their own strengths. Obviously, the Astros with their lineup and bullpen, the Rangers lineup and defense, which their defense is projected to be top 3 as well to go along with that lineup. And obviously the Mariners rotation is a huge strength. So I kind of decided on which team I picked for this division based on which weaknesses I felt were the least weak. That leads me to my pick, Taylor, which, by the way, okay, we agreed too damn much on the last episode, Taylor. That ends right here, buddy. I am not agreeing with you on this one. I'm rolling with the Seattle Mariners in the AL West. I know your first thought when you hear that is probably going to be, oh, he's just an Astros hater. That's why he's picking against them. Partially true. That's part of the reason why I'm picking against them. But the other part of that is I am concerned. I'm more concerned than you are with that Astros rotation, Taylor. Outside of Framber, it's lots of injuries, age concerns, especially with Verlander, unproven and or inconsistent arms in there right now, okay? I feel the same way with the Rangers rotation outside of Eovaldi right now, and I believe the Mariners lineup with the additions that they've made is going to be less of a weakness than those teams' rotations will be. So I'm going with the upset, Taylor. Seattle wins their first division since 2001 when they won 116 games, and they win the AL West. And my over-under pick as well, just give me that Seattle over 87 and a half wins. Excuse me. I think this is a 93-plus win ball club this year. I think this team is complete, and it's ready to make a push at that AL West crown, Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get much of an argument for me out of all the teams in the West. Like the Mariners are the ones that I'm rooting for the most. I do like the addition of Luke Raley as well. I think that was a really nice bat to add to that lineup, but we will see. I think the lineup has some room for improvement. So depending on where they're at the trade deadline, I mean, maybe they go pick up like a Yohan Moncada or something to play third base from the White Sox. So we'll see.
Even though the lineup's improved, it's not the Rangers or the Astros lineup. Those are, two of maybe the five best
tiers.
Five being generous. That could be two of the three best lineups in baseball with those two guys. So I just think the Mariners, man, I think it's their year. I think they're finally going to win their first division title in almost a quarter of a century. So let's go M's. But with that, now let's transition. We're going to the AL Central, a division that has been pretty brutal to keep track of the last couple of years, but it does appear to be on the upswing as the Minnesota Twins look to defend their 2023 AL Central title against a division that outside of the White Sox looks to be very improved, okay? As the Guardians, Tigers, and Royals have all put together rosters this offseason that look at the very least capable of competing in the AL Central this year. So Taylor, tell me, who is winning the AL Central in this upcoming season?
Yeah, you're right. This is actually going to be an interesting race this year. Like, this is still probably the worst division in baseball, I would say.
Probably,
NL Central being, I think on a similar tier, but maybe better. But a lot of that is because of the White Sox. And yikes, I'm just going to move on from them. I'm not going to spend any time on them. The Tigers, though, a lot of people have been high on this Tigers team, and rightfully so. Like, they have a ton of breakout candidates, but the question that I have is who actually breaks out, and does it happen this year? So I'm hesitant to put too much faith in this team this year, but I do really like the direction they're going in. I think they're doing a great job building this roster. And despite all the excitement I have about the future, like, Javier Baez just looks alarmingly bad. I'm just not sure what they should even do with him at this point because his contract goes through 2027. But if he's bad again this year, you got to start thinking about cutting your losses there and just cutting bait because you've got too much promise with these younger players to be having him hog up one of your premier positions. And they also had the best record against the AL Central among AL Central teams last year. So that is reason to hope in a division where a 500 record puts you in the mix to win the division. And I'm conflicted with this Guardians team because I really like the roster on paper. There's supposedly been this internal focus to tap into more power this year than they did last year. And if they can do that while still hitting for contact at a high level and playing the great defense that they're projected to, like this team could also win the division because the pitching is probably going to be great. But this was one of the teams that confounded me last season because they felt like a team that was built to win 85 games in the regular season and they just never really gained any momentum. And I was pretty close to taking a bit of a leap of faith and taking these guys as my division winner. But the main reason I'm not is it just doesn't feel like they have much margin for error. I fully believe that Stephen Vogt will become an exceptional MLB manager, but it's his first year and he has to fill the shoes of one of the best to ever do it. So that's a tricky spot for him to be in. And by extension, that's going to be kind of a tricky spot for the team because they're going to need to sort of reforge their culture and sort of the way that clubhouse operates. And even if one or two of those starters go down, I start to get a little bit worried about the depth of that rotation. And it looks like Gavin Williams is already a little bit banged up to start the year. So that's already going to get tested a little bit. And I also don't trust them to not deal Shane Bieber at the trade deadline. So I like their win total over, which is set at 79.5. But I have a hard time picking them to win the division. And it's kind of a lame pick, but I'm just going with the Twins for the division winner. Like, you look at this team and you're like, yeah, that's just a solid team. And, while I'm not terribly excited about them, I don't really have any questions about them either. The only one I do have is, can all these guys stay healthy? Pretty much everyone in that lineup is projected at a WRC plus over 100. They've got decent platoon options. The defense defense is solid all the way around. And even after losing Sonny Gray, this rotation is pretty good with the possibility, I think, to be very good. You've got a clear ace in Pablo Lopez. And even with the Duran injury, the bullpen is still pretty okay, and it should be like very good once he's back. So if they stay healthy, they're the best bet for this division. But as much as I want Byron Buxton to stay healthy, I don't think anyone is going to predict that he's going to stay healthy. And then you've also got Royce Lewis and Carlos Correa, who have had extensive injury histories, and hopefully they can stay healthy. So while I am impressed with the general direction of some of these other teams like the Tigers and the Royals and the Guardians, I just think the Twins are the best bet here. But I do think the Twins are not going to win the division as easily as they did last year. They're not going to win it by 9 games. It's going to be a little bit it's going to be a little bit tighter this year, but I think they're just the team that's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the most kind of proven veteran talent that you really trust when it comes down time to win games, and over 162. And, they had a good wild card series last year in the playoffs too. And they were competitive with Houston as well in that, divisional round. So I wouldn't be, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked by the Twins winning the division this year. But I talked about this with the NL Central in the last episode. There's teams in here that I'm not super high on as far as World Series potential this year, but that I do really like their future of their franchises, their kind of direction of their franchises. The one team that does not fit that is the White Sox. Listen, I don't hate the top 5 of their lineup. It can be solid. Luis Roberts, obviously a stud, but last year they had 5 just objectively bad players who all had negative F-WARs. Benintendi, who I expect to be better this season. Tim Anderson, who luckily isn't on the team anymore. He might have been the worst player in baseball last year. And then Grandal, Gavin Sheets, and Oscar Colas were all so bad last year as well, too. Plus, you had Elvis Andrus hogging a ton of at-bats as well, not hitting at all. And again, this is not a team that passes the vibe check, as we've been talking about in previous episodes whatsoever. By the way, Taylor, I should have listened to you on this team last year. This is one of the very, very few things you beat me on last year. You had me on this one, and I will not go down that road again. So, but a road that I do want to go down is the Royals, man. I tried with every part of my heart and soul to pick this team to win the AL Central. I tried to pick them, okay, because I love Bobby Witt Jr. I love Cole Reagans. I would not be surprised that is your AL MVP and AL Cy Young this upcoming season. Okay, I like their additions to their rotation as well. I hope we get to see a full year out of the Pasquatch as well. I just think they're missing a few pieces, more upside in the lineup and more in the pen as well. I think the front four of their rotation is actually really solid. I like Reagans, Waka, Lugo, and Singer. So I think they're going to be a good team. I just don't know if that offense can keep up this year. They might be 1 or 2 years away. So again, for me, this is a 3-horse race. Twins, it's the Guardians, and it's the Tigers this time. Okay, the Guardians rotation, bullpen, and defense will play, like you mentioned, Taylor. Plus, putting the ball in play, like you mentioned, is really, really good. That defense projected to be the best in baseball. The bullpen, I think Clase is going to have a lot better year this year. I think he's not going to blow 12 saves this year. I think that was kind of an aberration for him. And that rotation, like you mentioned, Taylor, is good too with Bieber. Hopefully, McKenzie can stay healthy this year and return to his previous season form. And then you got AL Rookie of the Year runner-up Tanner Bybee, who was really good last year as well. So this is a really solid team. But again, that offense for me outside of J-Ram just really ain't doing it for me. They've got some solid guys, but most are either not special or below average to me. So I won't go with the Guardians. To me, it came down to the Twins and the Tigers. And Taylor, I'm going with another upset here, baby. Give me the Tigers to win the AL Central, okay? I do have baseball reasons for picking Detroit. I'll get to my non-baseball reasons later, okay? They won 78 games last year, scoring the 3rd fewest runs in baseball, okay? Now, that is some luck, sure, but a team this young having that level of talent, the level of talent they have, and we finally started to see guys break out. Torkelson bounced back. Riley Green played well, even though he missed over 60 games. Kerry Carpenter looked really good. I like a couple of their other really young guys. Parker Meadows and Colt Keith looks really good as well. They feel like guys who can contribute right away, and they added a couple of vets that I really like, and Mark Canna and Gio Urshela as well. Some vets you can count on to play well and provide some leadership in the clubhouse. If Javi Baez can just figure out how to be a league average hitter again and not chase breaking balls that are 38 feet out of the zone, this lineup might be one of the most improved lineups in baseball this year, in my opinion. And then rotation-wise, as far as both the Twins and the Tigers rotations go, I like both number ones in Lopez and Skubal. Obviously, like you mentioned, Taylor, Skubal is less proven, but he's got a really high upside. Lopez is just steady. You kind of know what you're going to get. They're both awesome. And then as far as the 2 and 3 for the Twins, I like Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober for Minnesota as well. They've both been very, very solid. But losing Sonny Gray is going to hurt a lot. Losing Maeda, I think, too, is going to hurt. And then the Tigers get Maeda, and they get Flaherty, who, again, they both weren't great last year, but their expected numbers were better than their actual numbers were. And then you've got Casey Mize, who was the number 1 overall pick and has shown flashes as their number 4. And then Reese Olson as the 5, who was pretty good last year in 103 innings as a rookie. So, damn it, I am going with Detroit, not only because I like and want to root for the team, but because in the NFL season, I was riding with the young Detroit Lions all year, and they never let me down. Now, the vibes are high in Detroit, even though the Pistons are bringing them down a little bit. But give me the Tigers, Taylor, as the 2024 NL Central champs. And by the way, I'm obviously going to take the Tigers over 80.5 as well. So that'll be my over-under.
Yeah, I do like this Tigers team. I do. I think we're just a year early on them. I would like to see how that pitching pans out. I really like the way Colt Keith swings a baseball bat. He's a good player. He's got great splits for his righties and lefties. He just is able to like let the ball travel, but also hit for power. He's just a super well-rounded hitter. Parker Meadows looks like he's just pretty much above average at everything, so he could turn out to be an incredible center fielder. Riley Green, I like. Torkelson, I like. They call him Pete Alonso Light in some places, which I feel like is a pretty fair comp. I just don't know. Like I said, for me, it's not that I don't believe in these guys. It's just that you're counting on so many breakouts to happen at the same time, and that's why I doubt that it's going to happen this year. I would guess that a lot of those guys are going to become really, really good big leaguers this year, and then the rest of them are going to become really, really good big leaguers the year after that. So I'm feeling good about the Tigers for 2025. I mean, this division could go any number of ways, and I actually think one way it could go is the Royals. One of my favorite bets that I got in really early this year, right when the odds came out for divisions. This was right after they signed Lugo and Waka. I don't know who decided this at the sports book, but they had the Royals at plus 3,300 to win the Central. And I jumped on that right away. That's up to about plus 800 now. And I was kind of surprised with the lack of respect the Royals got that early. And in the last episode, I gave you my impassioned Rockies pitch. And this one I'm also passionate about, but this one is a little bit more grounded in facts, not just like blind hope and geographic proximity, meme numbers. Because I genuinely do think this Royals team could surprise a lot of people this year. So I'm taking their win total over at 73.5 wins. It's a few more wins that I was hoping the line would be, but I still think there's some value here, and I still do believe that there's a really good chance of them winning at least 74 games, because this looks like a big league team now, and they are hungry to prove it. The word out of spring training is that they really think they can make a run at the AL Central. And one of the arguments that people are having about that win total and why it's too high is that they only won 56 games last year, which is fair. Like it's hard to believe that they're going to win 18 more games than they did last year. But by Pythagorean win-loss last year, they should have won 8 more games. So if you take that into account, you're only looking at a 10-win increase. And I think that's a lot more reasonable. And then you look at their losses. They had 106 losses, and they lost the lead in 50 of those. So I think that's a stat that is going to positively regress a little bit. And this was also a tale of two halves for this team. They were atrocious in the first half of the season. They had a 286 win-loss record. And then in the second half, it went up to 423, which included finishing their last 27 games with a 15-12 record. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Cole Reagan's first start was the first game, or I think it was the second game because it was a doubleheader, but it was the second game of the second half of the season. And their 3 qualified starters in the first half were Jordan Lyles, Zach Greinke, and Brady Singer, who had ERAs of 6.42, 5.44, and 5.80 in the first half. Yeah, obviously, like Cole Reagans can't pitch every day, obviously, but when you add a legit starter and Reagans to the top of that rotation, it takes pressure off of everybody underneath them. That includes the bullpen, because if you have a ton of bad starters, you can't pull all of them in the 4th inning to go to the bullpen, because that's just too much to put on your bullpen. So then you're either left with taxing your bullpen to your own detriment in the near future, or you have to leave in a guy like Brady Singer or Jordan Lyles too long and possibly just lose any chance of winning any given game. And then you also lose the advantage to use your bullpen strategically, so you end up pulling guys and putting guys in bad spots because you don't have any other options. So having a full season of Reagans in 2024 and adding Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo to the rotation does so much, because on the surface, these are two very like unsexy signings, but they add so much more certainty to the rotation, and they pair really well with the upside of Reagans, which is winning the Cy Young. So Lugo and Waka will keep them in games longer and allow the Royals to use that bullpen strategically. And I think we're going to see some better results out of the bullpen this year as a result of that. And they also made significant changes to Brady Singer's pitch mix. They're adding four seam and a sweeper to his mix. And I'm hoping that that's going to help him find some middle ground between his really good 2022 numbers and his really bad 2023 ones. And then because Reagans is in rotation and because they signed Waka and Lugo, now you can take Jordan Royals out of the rotation because he was not good. And even though his expected ERA was like a full run better, when your actual ERA is like 6.5, like a full run better isn't that good still. So, and then on the offensive side, they add Hunter Renfroe, Adam Frazier. They have young breakout candidates, like you mentioned, Pasquatch, Michael Garcia is another one. And maybe the most important ad for them was getting the World Series magnet Will Smith into the bullpen.
Let's go.
And also they locked up Bobby Witt. And now it just feels like they're putting him in a position where he can succeed. He doesn't have to worry about the business side of things at all or the money at all. So now he can just solely focus on the baseball field, which I think is really important for a younger guy with the raw talent that he has. So I really think he's going to be a serious MVP candidate this year. And he could be a guy that carries that team. Also, the front office has their back. If they're in the mix for the division, GM JJ Piccolo says they're going to add at the deadline. So with a good first half, the Royals might even get better. Like the Tigers, like maybe I'm a year too early to back this team, and I would like this win total to be closer to like 70, but this is a really hungry team. They're confident. They have upside. They have young breakout candidates. They have veteran stability. They have the face of their franchise locked up for the foreseeable future, and the front office has their back. So like, why not this year? Why not the Royals this year?
Taylor, I wasn't with you on the Rockies and the 420-69 and all that. I wasn't with you. But this one, Taylor, I am with you. I am 100% rooting for the Royals. Like I said, I was trying to find any way I possibly could to say this team was going to win the division. I just couldn't quite get there. I'm also taking the over for Kansas City. I don't care. I'm taking both, okay? I'm taking the Tigers and the Royals over. Let's go AL Central. We're back in on you. But you know where we got to finish, Taylor? The American League East, a division that has been, in my opinion, and most people's division, will continue to be the best division in baseball, top to bottom. Last year, the young and talented Baltimore Orioles surprised the division by being a year or two ahead of schedule and winning over 100 games and winning the AL East. And then they added to that roster and look to build on that this season, where teams like the Rays and the Blue Jays look to be obvious threats at the division and wildcard spots once again. And the Yankees also appear to be in that spot as well after having a big offseason and adding a lot of new pieces. Even the Red Sox, who could be last in the division again, still won 78 games last year and are at the very least still a competitive and respectable team going into 2024. So Taylor, tell me, who is winning the best division in baseball this year? Who's winning the AL East?
Well, it's funny because I'm going to start off with a team that's probably going to end up in last. But if this team was in the Central, we'd be talking about them as a potential division winner, and that's the Red Sox. They'll probably end up being the best team to finish last in their division in MLB. And you can kind of argue your way into not disliking this rotation. Like Crawford and Pivetta both had really good numbers in the second half last season. You expect Bayo to take a step forward after getting his big extension, and despite Tanner Houck's 5.01 ERA. He had an expected ERA of 4.21, and Garrett Whitlock has top-tier extension and elite control, and it's pretty solid when he's healthy. It just doesn't feel like they have that guy that's clearly their ace, and I don't think Giolito was the guy to be the answer to that even before he got injured. And their lineup is interesting, but their success seems to be largely dependent on Trevor Story and Tyler O'Neill kind of tapping into through their past performances and putting up some numbers that we've seen from them in the past, and also hoping that Masataka Yoshida and Jarren Duran hit like they did in the first half of 2023 and not the second half. But they do have a really exciting young crop of position players coming up to the big leagues in the near future, like Ceddanne Rafael and Nick York, Marcelo Meyer. So that's something to keep your eye on for this year. Maybe we see a couple of those guys come up. So more than anything, I think there are some interesting storylines here, but the Red Sox would need absolutely everything to go right to even have a shot at a wild card. But at 77.5 wins, I kind of lean towards the over there, but only barely. I wouldn't put any money on that. And with then we get to the Blue Jays, and I just don't know what to do with this team anymore. Like, I feel like the past 3 seasons, I convinced myself that this team is the team that's going to make a World Series run, and they just never put it together. So I'm having a hard time convincing myself that it's going to be any different this year. And the pitching is still good, even if Gossman isn't starting opening day. They've also got Bowden Francis and Ricky Tiedemann as young depth with really good upside. So I do like the starting pitching, but I just can't talk myself into this Blue Jays lineup at this point. Like, the only guy I really feel confident in that lineup is Bo Bichette. So I have no idea what to expect from this team. I wouldn't be surprised if they won 79 games, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won 99 games. One of the popular bets I'm actually seeing a lot is people laying the Orioles under 91.5. Which is kind of hard to fathom because they won so many games last year and it feels like they got better, but I can understand why people are finding value in that because they did overperform their Pythagorean win-loss by 7 games last year. They had that crazy good record in one-run games, which was largely because they had the best closer in the league in Felix Bautista, and they're not going to have him this year. And even though they still do have Yiner Cano and Craig Kimbrell to fill that role, like, those two guys aren't going to be able to fill that role anything close to what Bautista did. And the rotation definitely doesn't look as enticing without Bradish in it, but it still looks very good. And I have complete faith in Burns and Grayson to pick up where they left off and absolutely shove. The depth on offense is ridiculous. Like, you could have half their lineup go down and they're just going to call up maybe Jackson Holiday as a replacement. Pretty great luxury to have the number one prospect in baseball just waiting in the wings in AAA, pretty much ready to go. So this team is going to be fine, but I wouldn't expect them to win as many games as last year just because they set the bar so high. But I think this is still a playoff team for sure. But I'm going to take the Yankees as the division winner. Matt, we've been Yankees fans since we were young, and forever. I'm taking them to win this division because while you could argue that every year for the Yankees is kind of an all-in year relative to other teams, I think this really is, even by Yankee standards, an all-in year because this team has been boom or bust for like the past decade. At least that's what it feels like. And last year I expected them to bust and they did. But this year I am kind of expecting them to boom. There's this sense of urgency to this team now because Cole's arm issues are a reminder that this window of having a healthy Cole and a healthy Judge is starting to close, which is part of the reason why I think the Yankees went out and got Juan Soto, not because of the arm injury, obviously, but because the Yankees are recognizing that we're not going to have these two forever and we need to start making some moves soon. So unless things are going really badly by the deadline, I think the Yankees go out and get somebody like Shane Bieber and bolster that rotation and maybe even go out and upgrade at third base depending on how DJ's doing at that point in the year. But the time really is now for the Yankees, and the combination of Judge and Soto could be historically great. And beneath Judge and Soto, this lineup also just feels way more balanced than it has the past couple years. Rizzo seems to be back to normal after that weird concussion stuff. Verdugo is exactly the kind of guy this lineup needed, just a guy that's a lefty that's just going to like put the ball in play, get on base, have a little bit of pop. That's exactly what we needed. So if this team stays healthy, which, big if, we say it every year, watch out, but time is kind of running out for this team. And I think with that touch of urgency sort of underscoring their season, I think they're going to thrive and end up overperforming a lot of the projections that people are putting on them.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful for that, Taylor. I'm very, very hopeful for that. I'm going to talk about this more when I go, and definitely more when we talk in our next episode about World Series predictions. But I was burned very badly last year, and now I'm very, very hesitant to put myself out there again with the Yankees. They definitely got some trust they got to earn back from us fans, that's for sure. But I'll start with the bottom, same as you, Taylor. The Red Sox ain't winning nothing. This lineup is good. I think it's good, not great. I'm not convinced with, like you mentioned, there's some guys who had half a good season last year. I am convinced, obviously, with Devers. I like Tristan Casas, but the rest of the lineup is just kind of good, and I'm not convinced that they're a great lineup yet. So to me, Taylor, you're a lot more optimistic on the rotation and the bullpen than I am. They're not good. The defense still isn't good either. The defense is really bad. It was bottom 5 in the league last year. It looks to be a little bit better this year, still projected to be bottom 10, though. The other 4 teams are very tough, though. Again, Taylor, you mentioned it with the Blue Jays are so tough to judge, man. Like, I don't understand. Again, they've got some pitching injuries right now, but when this team is healthy, they're not missing much. The rotation is awesome. The bullpen is really good. The lineup is really good. I would like some more lefties to kind of split up all those really good righties they got in that lineup, which I think is why they signed Votto and Vogelbach, but it looks like neither of them are projected to make the roster as of now. So again, the defense is also projected to be top 10 as well. A lot of that due to the outfield defense being unreal with those 3 guys in the outfield, Kiermaier, Springer, and Varsho, all really, really good outfielders. A question I have for this team right now is about their star, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Are you going to continue to be that really good hitter who kind of hovers around that 800 to 830 OPS range like you have been for most of your career so far? Again, that's a really good hitter. Or are you going to get back closer to that 1 OPS guy almost winning the Triple Crown in 2021? And I think if he's the latter, this team is going to be really hard to stop if Vladdy's that 1 OPS, MVP caliber type guy that he's shown that he can be. I think this team, for whatever reason, just can't get over the hump. And again, they're so weird. They've got most of what they need. They just can't finish. I'm sticking with my theme that I've had the first two divisions, okay? This division came down to 3 teams for me, okay? The Yankees, the Orioles, and the Rays. Taylor, for the people who don't somehow know yet, we're Yankees fans, okay? And again, last year was rough, man. It was very, very rough, and it scarred me. I wrote down a little bit in my notes, not even a little bit. It scarred me a lot, okay? It scarred me a lot from last season, okay? I love the offense that we've built this offseason, though. Obviously, like you mentioned, bringing in Soto, bringing in Verdugo to split up the lefties. A healthy Rizzo. Last year when he was healthy, he was awesome, and then he got that concussion, like you mentioned. He's also splitting up all the righties. I love the adjustments that I've seen from Volpe in spring training as well with his swing. I love Wells at catcher as well with some lefty pop. That's an awesome addition. That'd be awesome, if he lives up to his expectations as a top 50 prospect. That would be a great, great addition behind the plate. And if Stan can just be like the solid Yankees version of himself that he has shown he can be, not even like the MVP version, just the solid Yankees version of himself for like 65 to 70% of the season, I think this offense could be special. This could be a really good offense. But the starting pitching without Cole for the first 2 or 3 months makes me very, very nervous. Okay, I love Nestor. I want to root for Rodon. I like Stroman. I like Schmidt, but that doesn't give me a ton of reassurance right now. None of those guys. Stroman's the guy you can rely on the most, but the rest of those guys are all relatively unproven at this point. You got to see more out of them. And then plus, right now, our 5th starter is Clayton Beeter. All of our rotation depth is in San Diego thanks to the Juan Soto trade. So if healthy, we love to get injured every single year. All the time. It happens all the time. It never stops. The injuries never stop, Taylor. I'm nervous. I'm not going to be picking the Yankees to win this division this year. I just can't do it. I think they'll get a wild card spot. I do think they'll be in the playoffs. But to me, one of these 2 teams is going to win the division, and one of these 2 teams is going to miss the playoffs. I think just 2 AL East teams are going to get in this year because I think all 3 of the top 3 from the AL West, that being the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers, are going to get in. So the winner of this division to me is coming down to either the Orioles or the Rays. It is so hard to count out the Rays because they do it every single year. Like, it's insane how much we expect out of their pitching this year as well, with guys like McClanahan, Rasmussen, and Springs all hurt for either most or the majority of this year. But it's what the Rays do. They turn guys into studs that you might not expect or that you've never heard of. And that offense was awesome last year, and I still expect them to be good enough to potentially make the playoffs. But I actually don't have the Rays making the playoffs this year because the Orioles are going to win the AL East. Corbin Burns added to that young team. That lineup, like you mentioned, Taylor, the depth is insane. The defense is going to be good this year as well, I believe. And I like Grayson Rodriguez in that rotation to obviously have a really, really good a full year this year after struggling to start off the year and then being really good in the second half. Some things I don't like about this team going into this year so far, like you mentioned, Taylor, Bradish and Means are on the IL, hurting their rotation depth. Bautista, he's obviously out the whole year. That sucks. And then I don't like that they sent Jackson Holliday down to minor league camp personally, which again, I understand for, a service time perspective, but for anyone who watches baseball knows that kid, regardless of how little minor league baseball he's played, is ready to play Major League Baseball at a high level. This guy is unbelievable right now. And from the Orioles perspective, a team who is, they're now a winning team. You won 100 games last year. You are a winning baseball team. You have a responsibility to put your best players on the field at this point. And Holliday right now is one of them. You cannot argue that. Right now he is one of your 9 best position players. So I don't like that decision. I thought he was, the momentum was there. He had a 997 OPS in spring. He was going off, but regardless of all that, I do really love the direction of this team. I think they have it figured out. They've got all the pieces they need. And I think the Baltimore Orioles, Taylor, are going to be your 2024 AL East champions.
Hard to argue. I'm also surprised they sent Jackson Holliday down. I was kind of banking on him playing the whole year, and he hit some impressive pitches in an impressive way in spring training. Obviously, there's always the caveat, it's spring training, but this guy's 20 years old,
20,
and he's putting really impressive swings on some major league pitches. And I understand your distrust in the Yankees for this year. I'm picking them more because I think this roster is going to get immensely better at the trade deadline. I think sucks to say, but Spencer Jones might not be a Yankee, I think, after the trade deadline.
God, I want to be a Yankee so bad.
I think that's part of the reason that they were so adamant on keeping him this offseason. I know in all of the trades that were rumored, like especially the Dylan Cease trade, I know the White Sox, I think, were pressing pretty hard for Spencer Jones, and I think part of the reason is they want to use him as a chip for this upcoming deadline. So, but I can understand. I can understand your distrust there.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they're going to use him as a chip. I think an interesting person who could be used as a chip, I've heard this name float around a little bit, is Verdugo, because obviously we're going to have Dominguez come back, and if it's Dominguez in center, Judge and right, or Judge and left, Soto and right, depending on what they want to do, or flip them, then Verdugo, there's not a spot for Verdugo, so you'll have Trent Grisham as your backup outfielder. Maybe then you leverage Verdugo to a different contending team who maybe has a surplus of pitching, who needs an outfielder, and then you can swap for another pitcher, So I think there's a number of ways that could go, but yeah, Taylor, I'm just very, very nervous about the Yankees this upcoming season, because I was very passionate about my Yankees prediction last year, and it went horribly. It couldn't have went any worse than it went, so
I'm now in that position, so hopefully it goes better this year.
You're in there, buddy. But I want to get your thoughts too. Give me an over/under for this AL East division as well.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rays. Like it's pretty simple.
Man.
Like they're always either under projected or they always overperform their projections, whichever way you want to look at it. And I mean, they're in the exact same position this year. Their over under set at 84.5 on DraftKings. Like that was kind of an easy one for me. It was like they had the best run differential in the AL last year, 100 expected wins. They lost last now, and that'll definitely have an impact, but it's not going to drop them from 100 wins to 84 wins. They lost Robert Stevenson, but again, that's not going to contribute to a 16-win gap. No. And obviously, Wander Franco's not going to be playing for them this year either. And that's I think he had 4.6 WAR, so they're going to have to account for that. But still, I don't think losing those three guys is going to account for 16 wins. And they are already banged up to start the year, but that's nothing out of the ordinary for them. Josh Lowe and Johnny DeLuca are both starting the year on the IL, but I don't think those guys are going to be out terribly long. You mentioned Rasmussen and Springs, and they're probably going to be back sometime in the second half. Taj Bradley is also dealing with a shoulder injury right now, but I don't think that one's going to last long. Shane Baz should be pitching for them at some point in the near future. They also have Junior Caminero starting the season in the minors. Yeah. He could potentially come up and provide a ton of power. So I think this team is just going to continue to get better as the year progresses and these guys come back. And I don't know if I would confidently say that this team is going to win 90 games and win the division, but I feel pretty safe taking the over/under if it's set at 84.5.
I don't think anyone in their right mind would take a Rays under at this point. I mean, I think Vegas should know better than having Rays 84.5. I feel like that's just you're just getting easy money at that point, because the Rays just always find a way. For me, I am hammering. Taylor, you were talking about you wouldn't know which way to go with this one. I am absolutely hammering the under 77.5 for the Red Sox. This really? Division is even better than it was last year. They went 24-28 versus the division last year, and a lot of that was versus the Yankees, where they went 9-4. Well, the Yankees are much better. You ain't going 9-4 against them. I think the Orioles are better. Again, the Rays are still good. The Blue Jays are still good, and the Red Sox, in my opinion, are worse. Plus, again, the vibes ain't there in Boston, regardless of what Alex Cora says is going on in the locker room. The vibes ain't there. Okay, so the Red Sox under 77.5. Take it to the bank. All right, take it to the bank. They're under 77.5.
Yeah, that's funny. The Alex Cora bit kind of that felt very hollow to me when I read that. It was like, what are you talking about? The vibes are immaculate. Sure, never heard that before.
Yeah, come on, man. The vibes are immaculate while your star player is just roasting the organization every single turn that he can possibly get, So come on, man. What are we doing? So I think it's going to be a rough year for the Sox. But again, the AL East, man, they got they call it the beast in the East for a reason, man. There is a lot of good teams in the AL East, and, it's going to be an interesting division to break down. But we've covered all three divisions, so that is going to be it for us today here for the Bush League Bros, here, partner of the House Call Call Sports. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well at Bush League Bros. I am always in the comments commenting down with people. So if you have anything you want to say, comment it down below. I will comment back to you and I will cook you in the comments. Okay. So if you want to get cooked in the comments, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Okay. Also, again, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. We would appreciate all the feedback. Also, go follow at the House Call Sports on all platforms as well. If you like content from all sports, that is the place to go. And that is going to be it for us. Peace.
That one dude did cook you with that one comeback. I hope you get water on your sleeves when you wash your hands.
Man, I got to give him credit. That was top tier.
Because I had just done that earlier in the day.
I thought I had a good comeback to what his comment was, and then he came back with that, and I was like, damn. He really just wants to inconvenience my day. I was like, damn, that's like, he had me.